Good morning. Welcome to Tabs on Tap. I'm Tabitha Hassell. It's a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday morning. It was really cold last night, but you know what? It's going to warm up a little bit today. We're going to hopefully have some nice weather soon. I've got to get those fruit trees planted that I purchased, and they're in the sunroom right now to kind of keep them out of the frost and the cold, and they're blooming. But I'm like, okay, they're beautiful and blooming now, but what's going to happen when they finally make their way outside and get planted? We'll be finding out soon enough. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Dottie. Look at you guys. So many of you on X this morning. Happy to see it. You know, people were asking me, made a post on Facebook the other day about X and how people really need to create an account on X. And it is so, so true. If you want to be on top of everything, go to X. You know, there was a time when I had all of the news so much further ahead than everybody else. And that was kind of always like my thing, was being so far ahead of the news, you know, because I had all of these different intel people that I, you know, had contact with, and I heard information before anyone else heard it. And I was able to bring that to listeners on the various shows I've been on. Well, anymore, boy, it's tough to stay ahead, because if you're over on X, now you're not going to see this stuff on Facebook, but if you're over on X, they are way ahead of the game. You're getting information instantly, instantly. And, you know, it really is pretty amazing to me, because I was thinking about that, you know, yesterday, that, you know, normally I'm so far ahead of things, and still I am on some occasions, but people are on top of things these days. They really are. And there's so many great people out there who are, you know, the direct sources who are on X posting information. You know, it used to be that these direct sources were too scared to speak out. They would give information to someone else. And if you knew, excuse me, where to find that information, then you were on top of things. You were way ahead of everyone. But now those direct sources are they're out there. They have X accounts. They're posting. You know, I love following Colonel Douglas McGregor, and I have a couple of different of his posts to share today, you know, relating to some very important topics that are going on in the news. And it is really, we're living in this crazy time of instant information. You know, it's coming straight from the source. I've never, you know, experienced so much transparency. Now, if I can talk today, according to Colonel Douglas McGregor, maybe it's too much information. Maybe it's too transparent. We'll certainly talk about that. Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Stacy. And Lori says, I did not understand why the guards have had masks on. Good morning, Karen. Yeah, if you were watching the opening of the show, I was playing the video of the Tren de Aragua gang members being loaded, you know, into the airplanes, landing in El Salvador, and meeting with this force, you know, just an unimaginable force that came out and met them. And, you know, there's good reason why. And that is because I haven't even really heard this reported on the news, but, you know, it is being reported in other areas that the Tren de Aragua gang members attempted to take over one of the airplanes that was transporting them into El Salvador, and that they were being very defiant. And then as soon as the door opened there in El Salvador and they looked out and they saw the mass presence of the El Salvadorian police department, police forces, you know, military forces, that just put an end to anything that they were thinking, you know, that they really had thought that maybe they were going to take over that plane and potentially get control of it and land it somewhere else, is just insane. And it just goes to show the mindset of some of these men. It is pretty crazy. But nope, they are all in prison, as you saw. And there's a lot going on with that we're going to get into today, because we still have a judge who is going after Trump, really probably to a degree more than the others have. And there's a reason for that also. But lots of things to talk about today. We're going to talk about, did Hunter Biden sign his own pardon? That's what we're hearing. It seems too unbelievable to be true. But I think it's kind of funny. Did Joe Biden just leave his auto pen just laying around? Anyone that walked in his office could just sign their own documents. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to hear Trump talk about his own auto pen and what he uses it for. And we're going to talk about the JFK files. I don't know if I need to see the JFK files. I think we're going to see all the information we need to see today in a video I'm going to play for you guys. I played it a couple of weeks ago, but we're going to play it again. And I think it'll tell us everything we need to know. I'll tell you, I can't wait till Colonel Joe Adams joins us tomorrow because a war is brewing, as you know. Why are we always talking about war? There's just so much going on so many different fronts right now between the Houthis and Iran and what's taking place in Gaza. It's just insane right now what's happening, and of course what's taking place between Ukraine and Russia, which I don't think there's ever going to be a peace deal there, but we'll see how that works out. But in the meantime, we're facing a very serious escalation in Iran, and it's escalating by the minute. I know enough about Iran. I certainly don't know everything about Iran. I'm looking forward to hearing what Colonel Joe Adams has to say tomorrow when we speak to him, if he's able to speak on the subject, because things are escalating very, very quickly. And there's people who are pro and people who are against any initial military action against Iran. So we'll see how that works out. Good morning, Annette. So we're going to talk about that. So many things to talk about today because the world is just every day, it's just a crazier, crazier place. It really is. We have a situation now where the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza is over. Israel, heavily, heavily struck Gaza, over the past 24 hours. And, there's different reports depending on who you listen to. I've heard that Israel said they expect dozens of deaths. If you listen to the people in Gaza, they say there were around 300 people killed, many of them women and children. But the thing is you just don't know who to believe anymore because, of course, it's easy to say, well, they killed 300, mostly women and children, to gain sympathy and support. But at the same time, it also could be true because while Israel has paid a heavy price, the Palestinian people have also paid a heavy price. And it's a tough situation. I would never support Hamas. Never would I support Hamas. I support the innocent people who live in the Gaza region. They're not all supporting Hamas, and they're not all supporting the actions that took place against the Israelis. I think most of them probably are in support, but probably not all. And a lot of these people are women and children who really have no say in anything that takes place, within their country. And there's a lot of people who I'm kind of on the fence about some of these things. I absolutely support Israel and the Israeli people. I do not support Netanyahu. I don't support the leaders of most countries, so it's not specific to Israel. I think Netanyahu is trying to drag us down with them down this path of war. And, we're going to get into that a little bit more when we talk more about Iran. Good morning, Phyllis. But, it's so weird to me because I just made this statement, I think it was on Friday, about how there are people who are kind of speaking out, these back channels, saying Netanyahu just wants to drag Donald Trump, with him into this war with Iran. And that was on Friday. And then sure enough, over the weekend, things escalated. I was reading another report how we, the United States, in order for us to protect our national security, for us to keep the war complex going, you have to continuously fund it. If you don't fund it, then it ceases to exist. And if we don't continuously fund that war complex, then what happens is all of these different contractors, all of these different companies who are involved in making our weapons, making our aircraft, and so on, they'll go bankrupt. So we have to continuously keep some situation going on so that we can keep these companies afloat, which in turn keeps our country going. Because as we know, war actually makes money. It really does. War makes money. It's not always just about fighting another country. And I was reading an interesting report that said that we here in the United States always have to have $50 billion going out towards some type of war scenario, whether it's 50 billion to Ukraine or 50 billion to Syria, wherever it is. We have to be involved in some type of strategic situation to keep that 50 billion continuously moving to support our industrial war complex. And I thought that was interesting because the person made a really good point. And that was that as soon as the funding stopped going to Ukraine, which of course we're still funding them to some degree, well, then that $50 billion automatically shifted to where we started attacking the Houthis. But that's been going on also, for quite some time. We have been the United States and Saudi Arabia have been going after the Houthis from further back than I've even been on any type of show. I remember back in 2012 talking about the Yemenis and the great suffering, that they've experienced at the hands of the United States and Saudi Arabia, constantly attacking them and sanctions and forcing them into famine, and how there's been about 250, 300,000 Yemenis that have perished, really at the fault of the United States, primarily under Democrat control, of course. And things just continue to escalate. And, the Houthis, if they're attacking Americans, then we absolutely have to fight back. We can't just allow them to continue attacking Americans. We just can't let that happen. Donald Trump has warned them, hey, you've got to stop. This can end right here and right now. We're willing to turn around and walk away. But if you, the Houthis, continue, firing at our ships, firing at American personnel, then we're going to have to act back. And of course, they continue firing at us. And, of course, Donald Trump blames that on Iran, and it probably is Iran. So we're going to get into that a little bit further, here in a couple minutes. But I want to first talk about the situation that's taking place in Gaza. And, and I have a quote here from Colonel Douglas McGregor, because I thought it really applied, to the situation pretty well of what's taking place. And I always see the people in the Gaza region as being in that barrel. They're in a barrel. They have no way to get out. Even if they don't support Hamas, these people are trapped. They're surrounded. That little stretch of Gaza is completely surrounded, and no one will allow these people to leave. They just will not allow them to leave. So therefore, what ends up happening is that they do sometimes suffer at the hands of Egypt, at the hands of the Israelis. And I understand that goes both ways. They attack Israelis attack them. They go back and forth with it. And but what's happening there, what has been happening for a long time, is that Israel has had their soldiers in the Gaza region, and they have had these skirmishes back and forth. Now, there's a lot of Jews, particularly Hasidic Jews, who live in the Gaza region, who fought very hard for peace, and who actually were against Israel when they came into Gaza and started, all of the attacks against Hamas, which ended up killing, of course, far more innocent people than Hamas leaders or Hamas members. But now we're in a situation where we had a ceasefire. Things were quieting down. Now they're back at full force, with Israel going in and, conducting these airstrikes in the Gaza region. And I think we all know what's going on. They want these people to move. They either want to kill them all or they want them to move, to be away from that area. And I think they're probably going to end up killing them all before these people move, or before they have an opportunity to move. And Jay says they voted for Hamas. I don't know, Jay, if they really have much of a choice. I mean, it's a pretty crazy situation over there. Larry says, no, that's not the case in Gaza. Well, Larry, I've studied Gaza for a long time, far longer than I've had any type of show. And I'm not, it's a tough situation. I am definitely not pro-Hamas. Definitely not pro-Hamas. I absolutely support the right of Israel to exist, absolutely 100% so. I support the people of Israel and what they had to endure on October 7th. There's no coming back from that. There's no coming back from that. Hamas absolutely has to be eliminated. But then you have to decide, well, at what cost do they need to be eliminated? Does that mean the complete genocide of all people in the Gaza region? Do we move them to another area? Is that how we create peace? How do you protect lives at some point? All of the people in Gaza, they are not all Hamas, just like the people in Yemen. They're not all in support of the Houthis. We here in the United States, we had to live under the Biden administration, and we certainly didn't support what Biden and other Democrats have done to other countries and the people in other countries, but we here, we had to live. I mean, should we all get slaughtered because of and people could easily say, well, the Americans voted for Biden. We didn't all vote for Biden. We certainly didn't all vote for his policies. And that's the same for every single strip of land in this entire world. There are people who for it, there are people who are against it, but we've got to come up with some kind of solution because we cannot just continue killing everyone. Not we, but Israel. So we have to come up with a solution. And what is that solution? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't see any peace taking place between these two groups of people because they hate each other. They absolutely hate each other to the core, and they will never stop fighting against each other. So what do you do? Do you move them? And yeah, Larry, it goes back to biblical times, and we know, if you obviously, according to the Bible, there will never be peace, right? There will never be peace. And so therefore, are we just fighting a futile battle, trying to establish peace? But Colonel Douglas McGregor, what he stated is, he said the bottom line is this: the denial of food, water, and medication is a war crime, regardless of what nation is behind it. There's no other way to put it. Excuse me. Jay Saunders says, having lived in the Middle East, there is an ironclad fundamental difference between radical Islam and Islam. Nothing will ever change that. Jay, you are absolutely correct. You are absolutely 100% correct, as you know you are, of course. And there is nothing that's going to be able to change it. And there's nothing that's going to be able to create peace between these people. The only time I think step in to where I have something to say about it is exactly what Colonel Douglas McGregor just said. The problem is now we're trying to eliminate Hamas, which has to be done. It has to be done. We cannot deny that. But how do you eliminate Hamas without just killing everyone? I don't know, because like a lot of people are saying, even you guys on the comment line, that there's a situation that's taking place where there are families that support Hamas, children of Hamas, wives of Hamas. And the further these people are denied things like electricity or internet service or even the ability to leave, that's just it. There's probably a lot of people in that Gaza area who would love to just pack up and leave. They don't want to be there any more than we would want to be there, but they don't have any options. There is no way to leave. And now, because of the ceasefire having ended, they also have no way to get food or water. And that's one thing and this is the part that really probably the only problem that I have in this situation that I blame Israel for. It's probably just this one single thing. And that is, Israel does control that entire region. And so therefore they control the water that goes into Gaza. They control the food supply. They control literally everything. And the electricity, the water, the food supply, the medications, the medical equipment. And so what happens is that when Hamas misbehaves, which they do often, all the time, then what happens is they have the people there, even the innocent people, they have their power cut, they have their water cut. They're not able to receive medication or food. If you can imagine, being surrounded on all sides by people that don't like you, and whenever you're not acting in a way they expect you to act, which is civil, and I understand that, then they just cut off all supplies to you. It's a very difficult situation, and I don't have an answer for it. I don't think anyone has an answer for it. That's why it continues to go on. But like Colonel Douglas McGregor said, at the very least, just make sure the people have food and water and your basic necessities. Give them their medications, their food, and their water. And that's where I think I draw the line in the situation. Is I agree with Colonel McGregor. Those basic necessities, even in a wartime, need to be provided to people. Otherwise, it's not humane. It could be considered a war crime. And Jay says, even if you eliminate Hamas, there is someone else waiting to fill the vacuum. That's why I said it's such a tough situation, because there really is no way to you can't say, well, we're going to go into Gaza and eliminate Hamas without exterminating every single person there. And I don't think any one of us are in favor of that solution. So then what do? Do you take all the people, you move them to another area, and, together, I've met people before who introduced themselves as Palestinian, who somehow managed to get out and they were able to get away during easier times, and who are absolutely assimilated to our ways of life. They absolutely do not, you know, they absolutely do not carry on about hating Jews or hating Israel or trying to change, things here in our country. They're just living their lives like the rest of us. I know that doesn't necessarily mean everyone. I've met people from Iran. There's a guy I met who hangs out with a group of my friends, and we've talked a lot about Iran. And he feels the same way that a lot of us do, that he was lucky to get out. He was lucky to get out of Iran, in one piece. And now he's here and he thinks just like the rest of us do. I don't think we can put everybody in the same group and say that every single person in Gaza, if they were to move somewhere else or if they were to come to the United States or go to Europe or wherever they might, be taken, that they wouldn't assimilate. Because I don't think that that statement could be true. But at the same time, how do you separate Hamas from all the other people? And then can you take people who are part of Hamas and take them out of that situation where they're in that fishbowl and put them in another area to where they feel like they can live freely? Because you have to remember, Hamas rose up because they felt like they were oppressed by Israel. So that's what gave rise to Hamas. So if you take them out of that fishbowl and put them somewhere else, are they still Hamas? Are they still fighting? Or are they at peace at that time? It's a really difficult situation. And of course, I'm not going to be able to solve any of the world's problems on this show, but it's something that I think about in my head all the time. Like, how can we help these people? And how do we create peace between Israel and the folks in Gaza? I don't see any way possible. It's probably why Trump had talked about moving them to another area. Then he changed course and he said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not forcing anyone to move. So as soon as he said, well, we're not forcing any to move, then the ceasefire ended. So now we're back to square one once again. Oh, it's a tough situation. Jay says, even if you eliminate Hamas, oh yeah, I already read that. There's somebody will, yeah, that's the same as any terror group. A terror group, of course, is subjective to who's calling them a terror group. And what Hamas did in Israel on October 7th absolutely solidifies that they are a terror group. Absolutely solidifies it. You can no longer go around and say they're not a terror group. I don't care if they rose up because they felt oppressed. What they did on that day is inexcusable. We have to do something about it. They have to be taken care of, taken hostages, and the things they did to these hostages and to the children. There's going to be no peace for these people. If not in this life, then certainly in the next. So those are some things to think about. But we're facing this increasing situation right now with Iran, and it's probably going to end up being one of our biggest news stories in the next few days. Things are moving very rapidly and escalating very quickly. Again, we, the United States, Saudi Arabia, we've had this situation going on with the Houthis for a very long time, a very, very long time. And it's the same situation as I was just talking about with Hamas. We had the country of Yemen that was heavily persecuted by Saudi Arabia and some other countries, and we, the United States, we in Saudi Arabia have been conducting airstrikes in Yemen for a very long time, and those people there have suffered horrifically because of sanctions and because of airstrikes. And what happened is when we started sanctioning Yemen, I don't know why I keep saying Yemen. Yemen, when we first started sanctioning, they were just a normal country like everyone else. But just like Libya, just like Iraq, just like Syria, just like so many other countries, under Democrat rule here in the United States, we didn't like that. They didn't want to play our games. They didn't want to be part of our central banking system. They didn't want to allow us to plunder their natural resources. So what ended up happening is we just ended up sanctioning them and fighting against them. And because of that, they were all, our sanctions created a famine in Yemen. And then what happened is the Houthis rose up out of that. And of course, heavily backed by Iran. And now we're in this situation where things are escalating, and they have escalated many times in the past. It's not unusual for things to escalate. What is different right now is that Donald Trump isn't going to put up with it. That's the difference between now and then, is he is not going to put up with it. In the past, when they've taken shots at our American troops, at our ships, at our planes, we just kind of looked the other way. We might have conducted a couple of airstrikes and then we just kind of left it alone. But now is a different story. And this, comes back to Israel again. Like I said on Friday, I just read a statement on Friday from, I don't even remember who it was at this point, but they were saying, I don't even know if I knew who it was at the time, on one of these back channels that, I'm part of, where people are commenting who are no different than, us, and not, nothing, no one notable. And they were saying, Israel wants to drag the United States into a war against Iran, and they're not going to stop at anything to make that happen. And that was on Friday. And I'm like, that's crazy, because whoever this person was right. Not necessarily that Israel wants to drag us into this war, but they were right in their timing, that things have now escalated. And now we, the United States, let me backtrack. Of course, we know what happened. The Houthis are always taking shots at American troops. That's not unusual. Not unusual. And we were just kind of in this phase where we were starting to make peace with Iran. Remember, Donald Trump was wanting to bring Iran into the circle and start talking to them about their nuclear weapons program. Iran was, even conceding a little bit. And they were saying, okay, Donald Trump, we'll talk to you. Let's get together and talk. And we're not going to stop our nuclear program, but we're willing to work with you on how we can curb things and slow things down, and how we can find alternatives to creating nuclear weapons. Then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. I don't know what spurned that. And of course, then we have the Houthis, who started attacking U.S. personnel once again. As a matter of fact, and of course, Donald Trump blames it on Iran, as he should. Well, there's some crazy things going on. Crazy things going on today. And I don't know how we're ever going to get out of this. I'm trying to go back and look at the name. So what happened is yesterday, it had, whether or not you guys heard this, I'm not sure, but yesterday, we, the United States, we sunk the Iranian tel ship called Zagros. So this was sunk by the United States, by our troops. We sunk an Iranian ship. So things are escalating very quick because of that. Now, as of late last night, I read this. They're probably already almost there now. So the Defense Department has confirmed the deployment of 3 aircraft carriers towards the Middle East, no doubt, heading to Iran. And it's going to be a pretty crazy situation. This is the USS Carl Vinson, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, and the USS Abraham Lincoln, all heading towards Iran. Now, we have to start thinking about, okay, if they're heading towards Iran, are they heading towards Iran as a show of force to say, hey, Iran, you better back up. You better keep your Houthis off of our people? Or, are we there because we know something is getting ready to happen? And if you have followed Iran for a long time, different people have different ideas of what Iran is and how they operate. I have my own ideas, like anyone else. And I've talked about them many times, but Iran is always kind of like a barking dog. They make a lot of threats. They make a ton of threats. They're always yapping and blah, blah, blah. You can't do this. You can't do that. We're going to attack you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Well, Iran hasn't invaded another country in 200 and something years, since the Ottoman Empire. They don't generally want to create war. But they will retaliate back. So therefore, if you strike them directly, not the Houthis, they're not going to attack us for what we do to the Houthis. But if we do strike Iran first, they will absolutely retaliate. And that's how they've always acted, is they've never made the first strike. Now, they have through their proxies, like the Houthis as an example, but not directly. And so therefore, this is a really serious situation now. We've taken out an Iranian ship, an intelligence ship, and they're probably not going to take that very lightly. And I think our government knows they're not going to take that lightly. When Iran says they're going to retaliate, they absolutely do retaliate. It may take some time for them to come up with a good plan, but they do retaliate. And so therefore, how far is this going to go? How much do we have to worry? I know they have hypersonic missiles. I'm not really sure of their entire defense and what they have. And tomorrow, when we talk to Colonel Joe Adams, of course, we'll talk about that a little bit more and see what exactly Iran is capable of. How can they get us? Most likely the furthest targets that they can reach, of course, is going to be our troops who are out on these different ships and stationed in different areas. However, there are a lot of Iranian sleeper cells in our country. Don't discount Iran. They're very sneaky people, and there are definitely sleeper cells in our country. And I don't think they're worried about coming out against us, and having these sleeper cells activated. I really don't think that they're worried about doing that. Have they done it in the past? I mean, not really. So we'll see how far this goes. But again, we, the United States, after, of course, Houthis attacked, they attacked one of our ships out there. This is what's so funny is I think it's been 4 times now, like in the past 48 hours. The first time they did it, we warned them. The second time they did it, we warned them. Then we carried out very strategic airstrikes against the Houthis in Yemen. We took out 30 of their military targets, which is a really big deal. And then Donald Trump even told them, he said, if you do not stop, we're going to decimate you. And sure enough, they struck our ships two more times after that. So they are clearly escalating. Now, are they doing that at the direction of Iran? Donald Trump, he certainly thinks so. And he has issued a very clear warning to Iran that if this does not stop, if it doesn't stop, you're going to have a very serious price to pay. And so now we have those 3 warships heading to Iran, and we'll see how it goes. Is Iran going to attack one of these ships? Just yesterday, I don't know if this was late, I think yesterday our time, we had an intelligence drone. It was like a spy drone. It was not in Iran. It was not across their border, but it was near their border. Well, they took that drone out. And of course, that's an escalation on their part. So things are heating up very quickly between the United States and Iran. And I don't know where all this is going to go. It's impossible to predict. Things it ebb and flow, right? Look at, for a while there when Joe Biden was still in office, we talked so much about nuclear war with Russia, because we know that the Biden administration was poking at Putin, trying to instigate World War III. We know that was happening. And then thankfully, Putin has a lot of restraint. He waited until Donald Trump was in office so that they could create a peace deal, which is probably also never going to happen. Very much like the situation between Gaza and Israel, there's never going to be peace. I don't think there's ever going to be peace between Russia and Ukraine either. And that situation is continuing to escalate as well. And I wanted to read a statement here to you when it comes to some of these situations. And here's what it was. An Iranian military, they didn't take down the spy drone. They intercepted our spy drone. They do have some good technology, so they were able, I guess, to take that down. So this is Donald Trump's statement on Iran and the Houthis. He said, "Let nobody be fooled. The hundreds of attacks being made by Houthis, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen, who are hated by the Yemeni people, all emanate from and are created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that force will stop there. Iran played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they lost control, but they haven't lost control. They're dictating every move, giving them weapons, supplying them with money, and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being shot from the let's see here. Sorry, I lost my spot. As being shot from and fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences. And those consequences will be dire." That's a very serious warning from Donald Trump to Iran. And now, again, we have these 3 ships heading to Iran right now as we speak. And of course, we can't just sit back and allow the Houthis to continue to attack American personnel. We have to act, but how far are we willing to go? And then, can we just carry out strikes against, let's say, Iran directly without congressional approval? That's a whole nother issue that's going to be talked about today. And Yemeni forces, of course, the Houthis have been attacking the USS. Oh, sorry. I'm a mess today. I got my sound on my phone. They've been attacking the USS Harry Truman, and another US destroyer. Again, they're hitting them with cruise missiles. We cannot just sit by and let this happen. But how far are we willing to go? Do we want a full out war with Iran? And if we do end up in a full out war with Iran, what exactly does that look like? And Congressman Thomas Massey, which is he's kind of I've been hearing he's kind of in the hot seat right now from Kentucky. Congressman Thomas Massey. I've been hearing a lot of talk about him recently. Some for him, some against him. Some people like him, some people don't like him. And what he is stating, he said to strike Iran requires a vote of Congress because it's an act of war. And he is asking for Donald Trump to show restraint, that we cannot just get ahead of ourselves and start attacking Iran. And it's unfortunate, but we already did. We didn't have congressional approval. So where's that going to go? Where is that going to happen? Because we've already sunk one of their ships, one of their intel ships. So we're going to soon find out how far that's going to go. And again, the USS Carl Vinson, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and the Abraham Lincoln heading towards Iran. We'll see what happens. If you guys want to do any research, the ship we sunk, the intel ship Zagros, was sunk yesterday by U.S. forces in and around the area where the Houthis are. Just a crazy, crazy, crazy situation. And of course, Donald Trump today to talk to Putin by phone, Vladimir Putin by phone, to try to work out this peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Another situation that's probably never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And I'm sure Putin knows it's never going to happen. He's probably, is he trying to work out a peace deal? Probably. He's got the land he wanted. They've got to decide who keeps the power plant, how things go. But Europe is never going to allow this to happen. There's so much talk that it's Europe that is trying to keep, of course, Western Europe trying to keep Zelensky from making a peace deal, that they're talking to him, negotiating with him behind the scenes, saying, nope, don't do it. Don't give in. Don't create peace. Don't give up 1, meter of land in Ukraine to Russia. And so therefore, I don't think we're ever going to have a peace deal. Now, Putin might agree to a peace deal. Donald Trump might work out a peace deal, but I don't expect Ukraine to honor that peace deal. And now, of course, we have Canada. Canada, boy, they've been at the height of conversation lately. They have their new prime minister. Is it John Carney? I think is his name. And now he and Macron have become buddies. And together they have pledged to save Ukraine. They're going to work together on a new security force between the two countries, and they're going to do their best to help Ukraine. I mean, this situation's never going to end. It's never going to end. I wish it would for Donald Trump's legacy that we could create these ceasefire deals and all of this peace. But unfortunately, it's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. So we'll see what happens today when Putin and Donald Trump have their phone call. And speaking of, I know I've been talking a lot today about Colonel Douglas McGregor. He's somebody who I follow. I really like him. I agree with most of what he says. And one of the things that he mentioned today is he thinks we have too much transparency. He made a post on X about how, yes, we know that Donald Trump and Putin have this big phone call today, how they're going to work out this ceasefire, this peace deal. But he said he thinks that should be held, that the topic should be behind closed doors, that the American people don't need to know. We don't need to know the details of this peace agreement. And it's, I get it, for national security reasons. There are some things you just don't want to talk about to the American people. Some things need to be secret. And is that going to be the case here? I personally think we do need to hear about it. Of course, that's my own need to know kind of basis, because I want to know, what's going on in this peace deal. And I feel like my opinion is that the American people, we've spent $350 billion of our tax money supporting Ukraine, right? So yes, I think we have a stake in knowing about this peace deal. Does Donald Trump need to tell us every detail? No. But I think that the way things are right now in what we've been through with the Democrat regime, yes, we want to know, because we don't trust anything. And if you want to keep our trust and gain our trust, then we need to know the truth, right? We need to know the truth. And we're starting to find out some truths. Speaking of truth, we're starting to find out some truths. And, of course, today we're going to hear about the JFK files. I'm going to play a video for you guys, and I think you're going to find out everything there is to know. Everything there is to know about the JFK files right here in this video. 80,000 documents to be I don't know if they're going to release all 80,000 documents or if that's just how many they have. None of it matters. I'm going to play this quick video for you guys, and you're going to see for yourselves. You're going to see for yourselves. There's nothing more to know but this. Well, I think I'm going to play it.
Today. Well, Saul, it's been a pretty touch and go situation. Linda and I have had quite a few unpleasant words here lately over the deal with that he hired Mike Wallace to assassinate the president. It's been hectic in every way, but we've lived through it this far. I guess we'll continue to do so. Lyndon should have never issued that order to Mike. But we've had our differences, and I'm a true blue to Lyndon, as I've always been, and tried to carry out every order that he'd ever given me. But this is one I'll probably never be able to forget. And the times that we've had in Texas, and the embarrassment that Lyndon had gotten from Kennedy, I guess there wasn't anything else to do but what he did.
Well, you know, Lyndon could have really hit me if he would.
Well, Lyndon's the kind of person that doesn't want to help anyone. He's all for Lyndon, and that's the way he's pretty much always been.
Well, they had me backed up on that Henry Marshall killing, and they just kind of blackmailed me to keep my mouth shut. And if I hadn't had a bunch of tapes that I'd played after he got killed, because, 17 got killed in this situation very mysteriously. And I've done a lot of time, and I've lost a lot of money, and it's hurt my family a whole lot. And it's really got me disgusted with Lyndon in one way. In one way, I feel real.
So what do you think? Did Lyndon B. Johnson order the assassination of John F. Kennedy? I mean, I've always believed that to be the case. And when you hear a video like this, I can't see how you couldn't think that would be the case, And by the way, if you guys are commenting, I haven't been able to see comments in a very long time. So either you guys have nothing to say or nobody's commenting. So if you're commenting and I'm not reading it, it's because I don't see it. I'm not really sure what's going on, but that happens from time to time. It could be just everybody's quiet. But either way, I think that's a big deal today that the JFK files are being released. We've been waiting for this moment for quite some time now. The moment is finally here. We're going to find out exactly what's going on, and we're going to read those files. I'm going to read the files. Probably not today, so I hope you guys fill me in. Hopefully I'll hear some tidbits here and there because I have to work today. And of course, we'll talk to Colonel Joe Adams about the JFK files a little bit tomorrow too. I can guarantee you that he's probably got an opinion on what exactly took place here. But, finally, though, we were promised the JFK files. They released some information, a month or so ago. There was really nothing that we didn't already know. And so another disappointment in those files. But, we didn't even really get to see much of anything. So this might be a whole different story. 80,000 files, JFK files, to be released. Now, I'm told that they're going to be released to the family first. And then once they've released them to the family, then they're released to the public. So I'm assuming the Kennedy family has already seen these files at this point. But again, when you see a video like this, and this is a video that was leaked a long time ago, most of you have probably already seen it. I've played it on the show before. It really, I think, tells us everything we need to know. I absolutely believe the authenticity in this voice. It's a voice clip, by the way. It's just a voice clip. It's not an actual video. There's a video that's made to go with the voice clip. But this was just a secretly taped conversation that was had that was leaked to the public quite some time ago. And I absolutely believe it to be true that Lyndon B. Johnson ordered the assassination of John Kennedy Jr. So we'll see how it works out, and we'll see what those files say. I don't know what time. I know some of you guys probably know. I know Trump probably said what time they're going to be released. I have not heard myself when that's going to be, but something to keep an eye on. Hunter Biden, did he sign his own? Did he sign his own pardon? I mean, come on, probably. I mean, I'm really wondering what the situation was exactly at the Biden household. Did Biden have an auto pen at his home? Anybody could just walk up and sign off on whatever they wanted to sign. We know of two auto pens. Were there more than two auto pens? Was there a place that, maybe that's how the cocaine got into the White House? Maybe Hunter Biden was in the White House and signing off on his own pardon, signing some of his own documents. I mean, I would really like to know more about this auto pen. We've talked about it quite a bit. I don't know many more details than what we've already discussed. I don't know any more details than what we've discussed here on the show. Donald Trump has an auto pen. I've got two clips from Donald Trump, and I'm kind of worried I might play the wrong one. So I'm going to wait and play that at the end of this conversation about the auto pen. So that way, if I play the wrong one, we can just move on into the other topic. But he was at the Kennedy Center and he was given statements about a lot of different topics. So we'll get to that. But I really would like to see how this scenario played out with this auto pen. Was there a room in the White House where, let's say, had a locked door and certain people could gain access to that room? And whatever it is they wanted to be signed, they just took it into the auto pen. Was the auto pen in someone's possession that held it, and they allowed people, or they signed documents for a fee? Did they have to pay to have these documents signed? Did they just assign them based on destroying our country? Hey, you want to destroy our country? Okay, give me your document. We'll get the auto pen out and put it to the test. So Donald Trump's attorney, Mike Davis, he claims that Hunter Biden signed his own pardon. Now, I'm wondering where this information is coming from. Somebody has to be talking to Joe Biden or to Jill or someone very close into the Biden administration, because there's too much information coming out that I don't see how they would know some of this information. Donald Trump made the statement that Joe Biden didn't know. He didn't know that the pardons were signed. He didn't know. He didn't even know that it took place. Now, is Donald Trump assuming he doesn't know based on his cognitive state? Does he know he didn't know? Now, all of a sudden, we have Mike Davis saying that Hunter Biden signed his own pardon. So, how does Hunter Biden get a hold of the auto pen is a big question. Is it laying out in, Joe Biden's garage with all those classified documents? Who has the auto pen? How did all these people get access to it? How did all these documents get signed with the auto pen? And then to think that Hunter Biden would have signed his own, I just cannot quite figure out exactly how this could have played out. How did Hunter Biden get a hold of the auto pen? How did he sign his own document? How do they know that he did this? Somebody is talking. They have to be, because there's no way that Mike Davis could make this statement, especially something that could be considered libelous. He's an attorney. I think that he's going to be very careful what he says, but somehow he knows that this potential document was signed by Hunter Biden himself. And it's kind of interesting that all of the pardons all go back to 2014. Now, we've talked about that before. We all know why, because that's when this situation in Ukraine began. So, of course, they're trying to pardon themselves because they know eventually their crimes will be uncovered. But however, it's like, I'm really wondering what's taking place. I really am. We all have to ask ourselves. And then who's talking? Is it possible that Joe Biden himself and Jill, that they have become angry at the Democrat Party because they wouldn't allow Joe to run and they put Kamala Harris in his place? Is it possible that they're so angry that they are speaking out, that somebody is giving information to someone? Or is it just a fact that somebody in his administration knew that all of this stuff was going on and now they're speaking out? But somebody's talking. There's no other way around it. There has to be somebody talking. I don't know any other way how that could happen. Oh, a comment, Tammy. I wonder if anything will happen if they are null and void. Well, I haven't heard yet about Hunter's pardon, but we know the pardon for the J6ers, Donald Trump absolutely said were null and void. So those, yes. Now, Hunter Biden's pardon will probably be null and void as well. It sounds like attorney Mike Davis is trying to make the case for that. But I don't know how they're getting this information. So I'm sure we'll find out, as things continue to develop, because this story with the auto pen is definitely not over. This is just the beginning of the story with the auto pen. And as most of you probably know, Donald Trump also stripping Hunter and Ashley Biden of their secret security detail. Think about this. Hunter Biden had 18 security personnel paid from you, the United States government. You, the taxpayers, were paying for him to have 18 security detail agents. Ashley Biden, 13. And, I don't know if you guys remember this story. We talked about it on the show, but gosh, this was around the time, trying to think of when this all played out. I don't remember exactly. There was something big that happened around this time that made it a bigger story. But we found out that Hunter Biden was in a drug treatment facility in Malibu. So while he's in this drug treatment facility, he's rented a home in Malibu. If you've ever been to Malibu or know about Malibu, it's extremely expensive, just outrageously expensive, and for good reason. It's an absolutely beautiful place. It's where a lot of actors and other famous people live. And he was paying, I think it was $30,000 a month for a house. I shouldn't say you, the taxpayers, were paying $30,000 a month for a house to rent near this drug treatment facility for the Secret Service to stay. They had to have a place to stay because they had to be near Hunter Biden, but they couldn't stay in the drug treatment facility. So they had to rent a house next door or something like that. $30,000 a month. For what? To protect Hunter Biden against who? I mean, quite honestly, who wants to harm Hunter Biden? I think most of us could care less about Hunter Biden. So no more security detail for Hunter or Ashley. Not surprised. Now I'm going to, and I haven't heard any comment. Have you noticed that? I've heard 0 comments from the Biden family about anything. Nothing. No one has spoken up and said, you people are all crazy. None of this is true. Not one single word coming from the Biden family. Nothing. And I think that speaks volumes that we hear nothing. Now, I've got 2 statements here I want to play from Donald Trump. One is about the auto pen, and another one is about him chastising NBC. So I'm just going to play them both here because I don't know which one is which.
Sir, and when you signed
Let's
the
see.
CR,
Who are you with?
Sir, I'm with NBC News.
Oh, that's the same one. I don't want to talk to NBC anymore. I think you're so discredited.
That's funny, isn't it? He doesn't want to talk to NBC. I absolutely love the guy. I absolutely love him. All right, here's the auto pen.
Have you yourself ever used auto pen, sir?
Yeah, only for very unimportant papers. And I don't call them unimportant. If you do letters where people write in and, they'd love to have a response, or we'll write responses, and I'll sign them whenever I can. But when I can't, I, would use an auto pen. But to use them for what they've used them for is...
Exactly. Signing letters. People write to Donald Trump all the time. And when they write to Donald Trump, what do? He signs a note back to say, oh, thank you for writing me. And it looks like a real signature, but that's what the auto pen is used for. He says that's the only thing he uses it for, not to sign every single thing, not everything. So we'll see how that plays out. I think this is just the beginning of a huge investigation, which, by the way, speaking of investigations, there's a lot of investigations taking place right now. A lot of investigations. We are investigating to find out who funds ActBlue. Who funds ActBlue? Now, you've all seen those investigative reports where we show folks going up to the door. I can't remember. You guys probably know, but since my comment thing is not working correct, you probably can't tell me who it is right now. But there is someone who, was it Project Veritas that was going around? They were knocking on people's doors. They got a list of all of the people who donated to ActBlue. We've talked about this, many times in the past, and it's back again in the news because now we're going to try to get to the bottom of who these donors are. And they would knock on the doors of Republicans and say, hey, I show here that you're a Republican voter, but yet you've donated money to ActBlue. And it would be, a couple of $1,000s. And these people would be like, seriously, do you see the shack I live in? Do you really think I gave $3,000 to ActBlue? No, I haven't given money to anyone. I don't donate money because I need all my money to survive. And now we're finding out about these larger donors. Now there's Republicans who claim that that they have been encountered, approached by investigators who've said, hey, I see that you've given $20,000, $30,000 to ActBlue. And these people are like, no, I did not. I'm a Republican. I don't support ActBlue. I don't support Democrat projects. And I absolutely did not give this money to ActBlue. So now we're going to find out, hopefully soon during this investigation, who is giving money to ActBlue. Because we know what's happening with this money. It's being used to fund domestic terrorism. And I'm glad that Donald Trump is calling it domestic terrorism now, because that's exactly what it is. So ActBlue is receiving all of this anonymous money. We know that it's fake. It's money laundering in some respect. Somebody is taking this money, giving it to ActBlue. ActBlue is using that money to pay people to go out and sometimes be violent. They're going into these Tesla dealerships. They're going into Donald Trump's Trump Tower in New York City. And it is an act of domestic terror. So I hope that we get to the bottom of this investigation and find out who exactly is funding ActBlue. I think we all have our guesses. We all have a good idea, but it'll be nice to see that validation. And then more so, it'll be nice to see that prosecution, people held accountable for money laundering, for supporting domestic terrorism in such a roundabout way. I do think we're going to see some accountability in this situation. I've doubted accountability lately, but I think in this situation, we are going to certainly see that happen. Another investigation, I thought this one was kind of crazy. 45 universities are being investigated for anti-white discrimination because when they were going through their applications, accepting students, the white folks ended up at the bottom of the pile. Now, we've all known this was happening. We've all known. We've read plenty of statements from white people, particularly white males, who say, gosh, I applied to get into Columbia University or Stanford or Hartford or, University of Pennsylvania, some of these other universities that come to mind. And I was denied. I had the money for the tuition. I had the right grades. I had the right test scores, but my application was denied. And of course, then what they were doing is they were bringing in other people, different types of minorities and people who are here in our country illegally, definitely illegally. And they were giving them free tuition and they were offering them, scholarships and different things and improving applications, not based on merit, just simply because of the color of their skin, quite honestly, just because the color of their skin. They chose people of brown skin tone to go ahead. And Asians were left out of this too, by the way. They should have their own separate investigation because they were also keeping them out of their schools. And now we hear that Harvard is going to start giving out free tuition, free room and board to families that make under $200,000 a year. So it's a lot of the same stuff. That's all it is. That's just another way to keep white people out of your school. So we'll see how that happens. I'm all for helping out anyone, really. To me, there's too many people out there, people of all colors, white, Black, brown, Asian, wherever spectrum you belong in, who cannot afford schools like Harvard. And even though I feel like a lot of these big schools have lost their standing recently amongst so many people making far more money going to trade school than they're making, taking out $200,000, $300,000 student loans to go to Harvard or Stanford or somewhere else, sometimes more money than that. And I think people have realized that a lot of these college degrees, unless you want to become a doctor or a nurse or work in these different medical fields or, become a scientist, or there's so many different, ends of that spectrum, unless you're wanting to go to one of these particular professions, you don't need to go to Harvard or Stanford or Columbia University. So we'll see how all of that plays out. I hate it that my comment line isn't working very well. So I always miss talking to all of you guys. Let's see here. There's some other things I want to get to before we head out. So many things to talk about. I don't know what's happening with I'm sure you guys have heard the story about this South African ambassador that's here in our country. Well, Donald Trump has ordered him out of the country. He's like, you are here. You hate me. You hate the United States. We're having these increasing problems with South Africa, you have to leave. And this guy has absolutely refused to go. He's been kicked out of the country. He refuses to go. His name's Abraham Rasool, I believe is how you pronounce it. Well, Donald Trump has given him until Friday to leave. If he does not leave, we will arrest him. Now, what we will do then, I don't know. I'm assuming we will just ship him back out to South Africa. I don't think he'll be expected to say, but he's been a heavy critic of Donald Trump. So the guy has given his papers. He's got to go. He's got to go. The other people got to go are violent criminals in our country. I'm going to play, I opened the show playing this video. I'm going to play it again because I want you to see the magnitude of what's going on with these Trende Aragua gang members. And then we're going to talk about the judge who's trying to stop it all. And it's kind of funny. I had to laugh when I saw this morning. He's given Donald Trump an order, the Trump administration, a direct order. So we're going to talk about this. Like, who does this guy think he is? And I'm going to play this quick video here for you, and then we're going to talk about that. All right, you guys get the idea. I played that at the beginning of the show as well. Tammy says, why don't they kick out Soros? You know, Tammy, I wish that Donald Trump would follow in the footsteps of Russia in this situation with Soros, you know, because Soros has a target on his head in Russia. He is not allowed to enter the country of Russia. And if he's found there, he will be sentenced to life in prison or death. So he has a target on his head in Russia because Putin said, I'm not putting up with that BS in my country. And we should definitely do the same thing here under Donald Trump. Now, I will tell you that from what I understand is that Soros and his family have not been seen in the United States since Donald Trump took office. I think that they are. I heard that they're in Belgium right now, and they're trying to avoid any type of prosecution that could come from the United States. Now, whether that's true, whether that's hearsay, I don't know. But that's at least what I've been reading on, you know, some of these different people that I follow seem to say. Good, hello, Kimberly. You are, oh, FAFO, yes, F-A-F-O, you got that right. And over on YouTube, I kind of didn't think I would be on YouTube today. I got a little check mark from them yesterday, deleted yesterday's show on YouTube. So I'm kind of surprised they still allowed me. I got a little check mark from Facebook too. So a lot of these folks not liking me, they don't want to hear the truth now, do they? They just don't want to hear the truth. They also don't like my little videos that I play. They always say, oh, it's copyright, music copyright violations. I mean, how are you supposed to play these videos? Facebook, it's so funny. Facebook will release a video. It's on TikTok. It's on Facebook. It's on all these different things. And then I play it as part of the show. Oh, you can't do that. I'm like, well, Facebook, it's your video. You put it out there. I'm just replaying it, but I can't do that. Then all of a sudden, I get in trouble. That's always how it works, isn't it? It's always how it works. So U.S. District Judge James Boasberg. Who does this guy think he is? Who does he think he is? I'll tell you who he is. He was seen. Remember when Donald Trump was having to go to court, you know, because they were trying to charge him with everything under the sun to keep him from running for president? Because we all know the game plan, right? You know, they tried to imprison him. They tried to bankrupt him. And eventually when that didn't work, they tried to kill him. And yet he still persevered against all odds. He persevered. And so U.S. District Attorney Judge James Boasberg, guess what? He was sitting in the stands. He was seen in some of those court proceedings as an observer. He wasn't part of those court proceedings. He was there as an observer. He hates Trump. He absolutely hates Donald Trump. He hates all of us too, all of us. And it's kind of crazy to me because, you know, I used to always think of a judge as being this non-biased, non-partisan person who was there to hear a case and rule in the person, in the favor of the person or the group or the company that presented the best points. But that's not how it is. We know that the judicial system is probably one of the most screwed up systems in our entire country. So we know that's just not the case. So this is the order. So I hope you laugh about this as much as I am. He has demanded today at noon, he has asked for a sworn statement. He wants a sworn declaration from the Trump administration that none of these Tren de Aragua gang members were shipped out, flown out after he gave his order, because he still believes that they were shipped out, sent out, flown out after his order was given. Therefore, with Trump defying him, ooh, what are we going to do if Trump defies him? And it was kind of funny because one of Trump's associates, I think it was his press secretary, gave not his press secretary, sorry, his chief of staff gave a statement. And I thought it was such a great statement. And I was going to play that video today, but I'm like, I know I'm not going to have enough time to talk about all this stuff as it is. But he was giving a little hand gesture, and he said, this judge rules over this much of the United States, this little tiny swath of area. And he thinks that he can tell a sitting president what he can and can't do. And so I think that told us everything we know. Now, Donald Trump, of course, being accused this morning of continuing to deport illegal gang members against this judge's order. Now, where do we stand with this? I mean, come on, how does this is a U.S. district attorney, a judge. How does he have the right to tell Donald Trump that he cannot deport people who are in our country? I mean, these aren't, a family man. This isn't a business owner who's trying to run a restaurant or some type of business. It's not somebody who's a man and wife sitting at home raising kids and working and trying to be good Americans. No, these are violent gang members who, again, if you missed this part of the show earlier, tried to take over one of the planes as they were being shipped out from the United States over to El Salvador. They actually thought they could commandeer one of these airplanes until the plane landed, and they saw that extreme force that they were met with in El Salvador. Margie, can you sue a judge? Well, somebody needs to sue this judge. I don't know what's going to happen, but he is demanding, he again, a sworn declaration from the Trump administration. He wants to know, did they send out any of these gang members after his order was given? This guy is so full of himself, so full of himself. He just has a very severe case of TDS, is what I'm going to say. And then he also wants to know, well, how many more illegals are there in this country who are violent gang members? How many more people do you plan to deport? So these are all things he expects on his desk at noon today. I wish that I had the ability to be standing, out in the hallway near his office at noon today to see what kind of file lands on his desk. And I can guarantee you it is not going to happen. It is absolutely not going to happen. And Donald Trump does not care what this judge has to say. Kimberly, a nobody judge trying to make a name for himself. Yeah, that's all it is. He's just showing off for his little liberal buddies. Dottie says they will try anything. Yes, they will absolutely try anything. I played that video yesterday for you guys of a Hakeem Jeffries. That's exactly what he said. This is our game plan. We're going to hold it up in the courts. Everything Donald Trump does, we're going to hold it up in the courts. We're not going to, that's how we fight back. And that's exactly what they're doing. But the thing is we know their game plan. Their game plan is not going to work on us. We know what they're trying to do. And Donald Trump, from what I understand, has defied that judge's order. Now, I can't prove this, and Donald Trump refused to comment on it in one of the videos that I saw, but he was directly approached and asked by a reporter, did you violate Judge Boseman's order? Have you continued to deport violent gang members? And he just said no comment. And from what I've heard, I don't know if it's true, I don't have any way to confirm this, that those flights of violent gang members are continuing, that we are continuing to deport violent gang members even after this judge's order. Because, let's think about it this way. And I know you already are, so I'm not telling you anything you're not already thinking about. What American, it doesn't even matter that he's a judge, what American would sit here and say that we want to keep these violent gang members here in the United States. Who would even say that? Who would be against deporting these gang members into a country who's going to house them, feed them? Now we're paying for it. We're paying the El Salvador government. I think it's six. I don't remember if it's 6 million or 6 billion. One of those, six something or another. To house these folks for 1 year, house them at a very difficult prison. I don't think Allison is here today, but Allison would have told you the name of that prison if she were, and holding these guys and. Because if we would have sent them to Venezuela, guess what? They would have just turned around, let them loose. They'd be right back here in this country. We made a deal for these people to be in a secure environment, maybe not secure for them, but certainly secure for us. So we did what we had to do. We did what we had to do. And other than that, the last thing I really want to get to today, well, there's a couple of things I want to get to today. Some of the things that we've been talking about lately. Oh, you know what? I know what I've got to do. I got to play this clip to you from Tom Homan, because when I heard this, man, I love this guy. I absolutely love Tom Homan. I love him. And when I saw this video clip, I'm like, now I know why I love you.
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
I love that man, and I'm sure you do too. Wasn't that a great moment? Talking about, of course, the Alien Enemies Act that so many people are upset about. Gee, I'm so upset that Donald Trump wants to deport, bad people, criminals, rapists, killers out of our country. God forbid something like that would happen. Excuse me, Tammy says, send them to his house. I agree, Tammy. Send them to his house. That's what we should absolutely do, is send them to his house. Now, I know NBC reported on this morning, and I thought it was pretty funny that NBC had to talk about these things, because God knows they surely didn't want to. You heard that clip earlier from Donald Trump, admonishing the NBC reporter. This is kind of funny. Egg prices dropped. Gosh, can't talk today. Egg prices dropped for the third week in a row. They are back down in most states to normal egg prices. $4.15 for a 12 pack. Is that how a dozen? I'm thinking about alcohol, right? A 12 pack? No, it's not a 12 pack of eggs. It's a dozen eggs. I got to get it right. A dozen eggs. $4.15 is the average. Now, I know that's still about twice as high is the average egg price in my area, but that's about an average egg price in a lot of other areas and the prices they were seeing prior to that. We here in the Midwest, we're pretty lucky. Of course, I haven't paid for eggs in quite some time. I have my own egg producers here at the house. Joe, Mr. Colonel Adams, Allison is not there today because the Washington Guard has deployed. Oh, well, Mr. Colonel Adams, Joe Adams, I can't wait to hear about that tomorrow. And I know exactly why they've deployed. For those of you, well, if Colonel Adams has time to join us tomorrow, I know he's got a lot going on right now. And there's so many great things about the Washington Guard, but one of the best features of the Washington Guard, one of many, is that when your community needs you, you are there. And we talked about this before these storms came through, about how the Washington Guard, whenever there's storm damage, when people in the community are in need, they're there to help. They're there to clean up. They're there to comfort. They're there to provide assistance. So I hope that Colonel Joe Adams can join us tomorrow to talk about all of their efforts, and just another reason why we have to support the Washington Guard, because you know what? They are there when it's so difficult for anyone else to be. They use their resources, they use their manpower to go out and assist in their community. And God knows we need it right now. We absolutely need that help, because, man, there's a lot going on with those storms that came through. And they still haven't given the full number of storms. I think throughout the state of Missouri, I heard, and I haven't heard the updated numbers, there were 19 tornadoes just in the state of Missouri during that storm system. There were a dozen deaths here also in the state of Missouri. Some of them were friends and family of people that I know, and just a devastating situation. I know I was watching the news reports that night, the weather reports, and how there was a tornado that had touched down somewhere in the vicinity of Franklin County. And I did wonder about that. And I haven't heard too much more about it since that time. We know Rolla in the general, vicinity of their help as well. So hopefully Colonel Joe Adams can talk to us tomorrow. We can thank him, Allison, and everyone else for everything they're doing, for Americans, because they certainly deserve that thanks. And Dottie Eggs just reappeared. Interesting now, isn't it? Interesting. Pam, Homan is a bad, you know what? Yes, I absolutely, Pam, you are so right. I was remember, you know what? I love it so much. I'm going to play that clip one more time, and I'm going to share that to all my social media pages later, because if you don't know yet that you love this guy,
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process.
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
I would put that on a continuous loop if I had a way to do that, so we could just hear that over and over and over again. Wouldn't that be nice? So I'm going to switch gears real quick, because we're going to be heading out here in a couple minutes. Again, hoping to talk to Colonel Joe Adams yesterday. Man, I could almost have a little tear in my eye, when Colonel Adams piped in and talking about Allison and how she is out, of course, helping with the Washington Guard. They've been deployed to help people in not only their community, but the surrounding communities, which is beyond fantastic. That's why we have to support people like Colonel Joe Adams. And, tomorrow morning, I'm going to tell a story about a show I used to be on, who did not like Colonel Joe Adams. They did not like him. I'm not going to say they didn't like him. Well, I will say they didn't like him even as a person. And it kind of cracks me up, because I remember talking to these people like, have you lost your freaking minds? We've got to support the Washington Guard. And, I continue to support the Washington Guard. That's why I have Colonel Adams on this show every Wednesday. If I have a show on Wednesdays, he's here. And if I'm not here on Wednesdays, I try to find a day for him to come on, because I adore him. I adore the Washington Guard and his wife, Deanna. And I know the people for who they are. So I don't care what anyone else says. I can think for myself, right? And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Friday, as a matter of fact, I wasn't going to, but I was up. I don't know why. Sometimes, in your brain, you rehash things that are long past. You don't have to worry about anymore. But on Friday, I'm not going to probably talk about till Friday. Give us some little chit chat to talk about. I'm going to talk about women in radio and women in conservative politics and some of the things that I've had to deal with. And part of the reason why I wanted my own podcast is because I got tired of dealing with those things. Certainly not about my co-hosts or anything like that, but just some things that I had to deal with, and a situation in particular that I had to deal with that had nothing to do with anyone in the St. Louis area, a different conservative host that propositioned me in a certain way. And so I'm going to talk about that on Friday, because it was really bothering me this morning. And I'm thinking, that's what, because I get tired. I have a lot of work to do. It's really difficult sometimes for me to get on, take time out to do a show. And sometimes I even have to ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Why I could be out working in my garden or doing something else, sleeping, even though I wouldn't sleep anyway. And I'm like, well, I do it because, I want to have my own content. Might not always be good content. Might not always be what you want to hear or what you want to know, or I might overdo some topics. But it's, I do the podcast, and I always think, well, if you want to hear it, you can tune in. If you don't want to hear it, you can ignore it, but it's about things that I think about and want to talk about, and hopefully things that you guys want to hear. But I'm always open, of course, to other topics as well. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit on Friday. Linda says, Kent Earhart had a huge stack of storm reports. He said it was the most that he has ever seen. I know Kent Earhart, and I'll tell you what, he is a sweetheart. I absolutely love that man. If you knew him, you would too. He is a really, really wonderful, very nice guy. I'm so happy to have met him. I haven't seen him in a long time, but he's part of my friend group, and super, super, super good guy. And so I'm glad you brought his name up. But something I want to talk about before we end the show is that Conor McGregor yesterday met with Donald Trump. And we talk a lot about foreign policy, and we talk a lot about how countries try to destroy themselves. I will never understand, and I wish if there was somebody who could explain this to me, I would really love it, because I feel like I do so much research and there's a lot of things I know, but what I don't know is how any country, how they benefit from destroying themselves. I just don't understand it. And Ireland is one of those countries who has continuously tried to destroy themselves. And I don't understand it. We don't talk a lot about Ireland. They're not in the news all that often. And just like Europe, just like other parts of Western Europe, we know what's happened in Paris. You can't even visit the Eiffel Tower, really, because if you do, you're going to have to deal with pickpockets and crime and illegals and migrants and all kinds of other stuff. I have no desire to go to some of these places for that reason. Ireland is no different. And I'm going to play a little short video clip right before we head out here from Conor McGregor, who said, you know what, there are communities in Ireland in which the Irish people are the minority because they have taken in so many migrants into their country. And that's how you destroy a country from within. I am all for bringing in migrants or bringing in people. I'm all for immigration. And I know so many people who have come to the United States, and we all started somewhere. Now, I have some Native American heritage, so some of my family was already here. We didn't immigrate here; we were already here on both sides of my family, both on and then of course I have some family members just like most of us that came over from Ireland and Barbados and from England back in the day. We're all a big mixing pot here in the United States, no question about it. I absolutely support immigration, legal immigration, where people come here, they contribute to our society, they make our country a better place. 100% for that. I welcome them in with open arms. But what I don't welcome is people being brought into our country to destroy our country from within. People who come into our country and they cannot assimilate. They come here and they expect us to change to fit their needs. I remember there was a time, you don't hear about this as much, but there was a time when we had people coming into our country who were burning American flags, going around suing restaurants because they sold bacon. I mean, this is true. This actually happened. It was true. And it's no different in Ireland. No different at all in Ireland. And I love that he came forward and he talked about this because I think it needed to be said. So I'm going to play this quick clip here.
Our government has long since abandoned the voices of the people of Ireland. And it's high time that America is made aware of what is going on in Ireland. What is going on in Ireland is a travesty. Our government is the government of zero action with zero accountability. Our money is being spent on overseas issues that has nothing to do with the Irish people. The illegal immigration racket is running ravage on the country. There are rural towns in Ireland that have been overrun in one swoop, that have become a minority in one swoop. So issues need to be addressed, and the 40 million Irish Americans, as I said, need to hear this, because if not, there will be no place to come.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I've always, sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. What I was saying is, can you imagine Ireland, such a beautiful country, such historic values there. I've my great grandmother, her family came over from Ireland. Her mother came here from Ireland. And, I've always wanted to go. I've never been. Now I hear people say, don't go, just don't go. There's too much going on there, fighting and migrants everywhere. And now we hear Conor McGregor talking about how there are some communities in Ireland where the Irish are the minority. How do these things happen? How do countries destroy themselves from within? Why do they do this? And, we were on that track before Donald Trump. We were on that track. We were on that path of destruction where our government wanted to bring in all of these different people to change our culture. And they wanted us Americans to be the minority. There's no question about it. We know that's exactly what has happened. We know that's exactly what has happened. And it really makes me wonder why, because I don't know why. I don't know why a country wants to destroy themselves. The only thing I can think of is that, they see us all as little worker bees. We go out, we work, they feed us little bits and crumbs here and there to keep you alive, keep you going. You're allowed some semblance of freedom. I've always said freedom is just an illusion. They want you to feel like you're free, but you're really not free. You're absolutely not free. And so then, you're going out, you're working to try to keep your family healthy and provide things for yourself and your family. We've all not all of us, but as a general whole, our country, a lot of people have become very materialistic, but that's how they wanted us. They wanted us to care about what kind of car we drive, what kind of house we live in. They want us to be materialistic. And then all of a sudden there was this movement towards Christianity, a movement towards homesteading. And that is the exact opposite of what our government under Democrats wanted. And then we saw exactly how free we really are, which is not free at all. And that really changed how a lot of people's perspective on the government and what they were really wanting for us. It wasn't for us to be self-sufficient or prosperous. They really just wanted us to keep continuing to work to buy those big, expensive, shiny objects so we could pay taxes. So they could go out with their little auto pen and their NGOs and take all of the money we worked so hard for. 73 cents of every dollar you've made has gone to taxes. Those taxes have lined the pockets of all of these people within our government, all these NGOs. It's no question about it. It's just disgusting to even think about. Joe Fry, late again. Good morning. Maybe because the deep state has their hands in every nation on the earth. They need to destroy every culture by loading immigrants who they know will not assimilate purposefully. It is definitely with purpose. It is definitely with purpose. And I think it's an excuse, isn't it? Well, we bring all these people in. We've got to use your tax dollars to provide shelter and food and education for these people when really they're just pocketing most of the money. They write these big bills out and they'll say, oh, we're going to pay $100,000 to this. No, $5,000 goes to this. The rest goes back in their pockets again. We've got to wipe the slate clean, get rid of lobbyists. I hate it because I know some lobbyists who I really like. As people, I really like them a lot. But they're part of the problem. Their job is part of the problem. Let's find them other good jobs that they can do. Let's get them out of the lobbying, the world of being a lobbyist is my thoughts. But either way, I could go on and on about this, but I won't. Tomorrow, one of the things I want to talk about tomorrow also, we're going to give an update on Iran because this situation with Iran is escalating so fast, so fast. If Iran does not back down, we're going to be in a full-scale war, and as Representative Thomas Massey said, that we need congressional approval for. However, we've already sunk an Iranian ship. So do we really need congressional approval, or are we just going to move straight through it? We'll talk to Colonel Joe Adams about that as well, if he has the time to join us. I know he's got bigger things going on right now with storm cleanup and so on. But anyway, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. I want to talk about something else that Douglas McGregor, stated about 200,000 Ukrainians in the United States working for the Ukrainian secret police and the threat that we face, from these people. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, see how all of these, the talks with Putin go today. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. Lots of other stuff, lots to talk about. So I hope to talk to you all tomorrow. I hope you guys all have a really fantastic day. Thank you for joining me today. If you like the show, be sure to share it. That is how we improve and get more listeners and bring more people in. And I tell people all the time, but no one ever does it. You can go to my page. You can like and follow my page. A lot of people listen to the show, comment on my post, but they don't like and follow my page. So please do that. I'm trying to reach my goal, but I'm not quite there yet. If you like the show, share it, spread the truth faster than they spread those lies. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap, and I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.